This was the state of the world in 571 AD, while a child named Muhammad was being born in the dusty city of Makkah. The planet was caught in the grip of two mighty superpowers, locked in an endless struggle for dominance. In the east stood the Sassanid Persian Empire, ruled by Khosrow I, a king whose realm stretched from the Euphrates all the way to India. His armies were legendary, his treasury overflowing with gold from the Silk Road trade. The Persians followed Zoroastrianism, an ancient faith teaching of an eternal battle between light and darkness. In the west towered the Byzantine Empire, the continuation of ancient Rome itself. From Constantinople, Emperor Justin II ruled territories from Italy to Egypt. The Byzantines were Christians. Though their church had become entangled with politics and power, these two empires had been fighting each other for generations. Their wars about ideology and which religion would dominate the known world. Between these giants lay a forgotten land that both empires barely noticed. Arabia. To them, it was just empty desert, home to backward tribes with no significance whatsoever. They could not have been more wrong. Arabia was about to change everything. Trade routes crossed the peninsula like veins carrying commerce between civilizations. Caravans loaded with frankincense and myrrh from Yemen traveled north to Syria. Merchants from India arrived at Arabian ports, their ships heavy with spices and silk. At the heart of this network sat Makkah, a city in a barren valley surrounded by mountains. Makkah had no rivers, no fertile land, nothing that would naturally make it important. But it had the Kaaba, an ancient cubic structure built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ismail, as a house of worship for the one God. Over centuries, as people forgot pure monotheism, the Kaaba had been transformed. Inside and around it stood 360 idols, each representing a different tribal god. This made Makkah incredibly wealthy. Every year, pilgrims from across Arabia converged on the city to worship their gods and spend money. But beneath the prosperity, Arabian society was deeply troubled. The strong oppressed, the weak without mercy. Slavery was widespread and brutal. Women had almost no rights. They couldn't inherit property and were themselves inherited like possessions when husbands died. A man could marry unlimited women and divorce them with a single word. But perhaps the darkest practice was female infanticide. When baby girls were born, families often took them into the desert and buried them alive. This wasn't rare or hidden, it was accepted. Tribal warfare was constant. A single insult could trigger feuds lasting generations, cycles of revenge killings with no end. There was no justice system, no law that tribes respected equally. Into this darkness, in 571 AD, Muhammad was born. His father Abdullah died weeks before his birth. His mother, Imina, gave birth in Makkah and named him Muhammad, the praised one. Following custom, he was sent to the desert to be raised by a Bedouin wet nurse named Halima. When Muhammad was 6, his mother died, leaving him orphaned. His grandfather Abdul Muttalib took him in, but died when Muhammad was 8. Then his uncle Abu Talib raised him with genuine affection. Despite these losses, Muhammad grew up different. He never participated in idol worship, never drank alcohol, never engaged in casual cruelty. He became known for honesty. People called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy, and Al-Sadiq, the truthful. As a teenager, Muhammad joined trading caravans to Syria, encountering Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians who worshipped one God. By his he had established a reputation as an exceptional merchant. A wealthy widow named Khadijah hired him to lead her caravan and was so impressed that she proposed marriage. Though she was 40 and he was 25, Muhammad accepted. Their marriage was one of deep love and partnership. They had 6 children together. In a society where men routinely took multiple wives, Muhammad remained married only to Khadijah for 25 years. But Muhammad felt growing discomfort watching his society's injustice. He began spending time alone in a cave on Mount Hira, contemplating the Creator and searching for truth. Then one night in 610 AD during Ramadan, everything changed. Muhammad was alone in the cave when suddenly an overwhelming presence appeared. A being of light, terrifying in power. The being commanded, "Read." Muhammad, who couldn't read, replied in terror, Primera Kanat read, "The being embraced him with crushing force, released him, and commanded again." After the third time, the being spoke words that would echo through history. Read, "In the name of your Lord, who created man from a clinging substance." Read, "And your Lord is the most generous." These were the first verses of the Quran. The being was Angel Jibril, and God was speaking to humanity again, choosing Muhammad as his messenger. Muhammad fled down the mountain in terror, stumbling over rocks. He reached home crying to Khadijah, "Cover me!" She wrapped him in a cloak as he told her everything. Then she said, "Rejoice! By Allah, he will never disgrace you. You help the poor, serve your guests, and assist those struck by calamities." She took him to a cousin Waraka, an elderly scholar who knew the Christian and Jewish scriptures. When Waraka heard the story, he said, "This is the same angel that came to Moses. You are the prophet of this nation." For 3 years, Muhammad taught his message privately. There is only one God, and all humans are equal before him. His wife Khadijah believed first, then his cousin Ali, still a boy. His friend Abu Bakr, a respected merchant. Slowly, a small community formed. In 613 AD, Muhammad went public. He stood on a hill and called people to abandon false gods and worship only the Creator. The reaction was explosive. Meccan merchants saw this as a threat to their wealth. If people stopped believing in tribal gods, they'd stop making pilgrimages. The social hierarchy would crumble if everyone was equal. Brutal persecution followed. Early believers were tortured mercilessly. Bilal, a slave, had a huge rock placed on his chest under the burning sun while his master demanded he renounce his faith. Bilal refused, saying only ehad, meaning when Sumayyah became the first martyr, killed for her faith. Muhammad himself was mocked, had garbage thrown on him, and survived assassination attempts. But the message kept spreading because it offered hope and dignity to the oppressed. It told slaves they were equal to kings before God. It told women they had rights and souls. As persecution intensified, Muhammad told some followers to migrate to Abyssinia in 615 AD, where a just Christian king granted them protection. In Makkah, the Quraysh imposed a complete boycott on Muhammad's clan. For 3 years, they were cut off from trade, slowly starving. The boycott ended. But then came the year of sorrow. 619 AD, Muhammad's wife Khadijah died. Then his uncle, he had lost his 2 greatest protectors. Muhammad traveled to Taif seeking support but was stoned until his feet bled. Just when everything seemed darkest, during pilgrimage season in 621 AD, Muhammad met people from Yathrib, a city torn by tribal warfare. They needed a neutral arbitrator and were impressed by Muhammad's wisdom. Many believed his message. The next year, they invited Muhammad to migrate to their city. In 622 AD, Muslims began secretly leaving Makkah. When the Quraysh discovered this, they plotted to assassinate Muhammad. On the assassination night, Muhammad escaped with Abu Bakr and hid in a cave. When assassins reached the cave, they found a spider had spun a web across the entrance, making it appear undisturbed. Mobadan. This migration, the Hijrah, marks such a pivotal moment that the Islamic calendar begins from this year. When Muhammad arrived in Yathrib Renamet Madinah, he wasn't just a religious teacher. He became a statesman and established the Constitution of Medina, guaranteeing religious freedom and justice for all groups. But Makkah wasn't done with Muhammad. In 624 AD, they marched north with a force 3 times larger. At Badr, against all odds, the Muslims won decisively. The Quraysh returned the next year at Uhud and inflicted heavy casualties, but the Muslims survived. In 627 AD, 10,000 men marched on Madinah. Muhammad ordered a defensive trench dug, a tactic never seen in Arabia. The siege lasted weeks until winter storms forced retreat. In 628 AD, Muhammad announced he would perform pilgrimage to Makkah unarmed with 1,400 followers. The Quraysh panicked and negotiated the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. The treaty seemed harsh, but gave Muslims legitimacy and peace. During this peace, Muhammad sent letters to the great rulers, to the Byzantine Empire, the Persian Empire, inviting them to worship the one God. 2 years later, a Maccan-allied tribe violated the treaty. Muhammad assembled 10,000 men and marched on Makkah. The city that had persecuted him lay defenseless. What happened next shocked the world. Muhammad entered without bloodshed and declared general amnesty. The very people who tried to destroy him were forgiven. He entered the Kaaba and destroyed the 360 idols inside, restoring it to its original purpose. The conquest of Makkah was the turning point. Within 2 years, the entire Arabian Peninsula was unified, not by force, but by shared belief in one God, justice, and human dignity. In 632 AD, Muhammad performed his final pilgrimage and delivered his farewell sermon. He said all humanity descends from Adam, and Adam was from dust. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor does a white have superiority over a black, except by piety and good action. Shortly after, Muhammad passed away, but his message had already begun spreading beyond Arabia. Within decades, it would reach from Spain to China, carried by those who believed that all humans are equal before their creator, transforming the world forever.